"Hand over your guns, or we'll call the real cops." That's what they barked at me, in my own garage, puffing up their chests like extras from a bad cop show. I've been through war zones. I've buried brothers overseas. And now I'm supposed to tremble because a few neighborhood punks in cheap uniforms say so? I almost laughed out loud. Halloween came early, and these kids thought paper badges and toy radios made them lawmen. The nerve, strutting around as if I just roll over and let them take what generations of my family fought to keep safe. Tell me, would you have played along or called their bluff? The moment they stepped onto my property, alarms went off in my head. Their uniforms looked official at a glance, but years of military training teach you to spot details. The fabric was too thin. The emblems caught the light wrong. And their walk, pure civilian swagger, pretending to be soldiers. My garage door was wide open, morning sun streaming across my workbench. Everything was lined up with military precision. The tallest one spoke first, flashing his badge like he was auditioning for a reality show. "Sir, we're here regarding neighborhood safety regulations," he announced. "I'm Troy Bennett with HA Security Enforcement." His voice had that mall cop ring to it. Force authority, no weight. The other two flanked him, clipboards ready, radios crackling with what sounded like police chatter but felt wrong to my trained ears. I crossed my arms, studying their setup. Tools hung neatly on the walls. My gun safe stood against the far side, federal compliance seals clear as day. They were eyed like sharks circling wounded prey. This was amateur hour dressed up as law enforcement. "Never heard of that department," I said flatly. The middle guy, shorter, jumpy, started reading from official-looking papers about firearms investigations and subdivision regulations. The third one, built like a linebacker, spoke into his comm using codes that sounded almost right, but not quite. Then a flicker of recognition. The tall one's face. I blinked. Where had I seen him? And then it hit me. Bennett's Bargain Beds. That cheesy commercial with a jingle about where dreams come true for the whole family. The same guy, dancing with an oversized pillow on TV just last month. I stepped closer, voice cool. "Aren't you the guy from that furniture commercial?" Bennett's Bargain Beds. His face drained of color. The confidence crumbled like a house of cards. His partners exchanged panicked glances. 1 second, he was officer authority. The next, Troy Bennett, mattress salesman in a cheap costume. "I have no idea what you're talking about," he stammered, his voice losing all that fake command. The nervous one shuffled his forged papers. The linebacker muttered into his radio, but now it sounded desperate instead of official. "Boys," I said, examining their gear, "that uniform material's thinner than a beer can. These insignias from a cereal box." I held one of their badges up. It was hollow, trembling like foil. Real shields have weight. These were stage props from a Halloween store. Troy tried again, gesturing at my gun safe. "Sir, you need to cooperate with our investigation. Neighborhood protection requires proper firearms documentation." They moved closer, trying intimidation through positioning, but they looked more like mall security than real cops. That's when I thumbed my phone's camera on. 3, 2, 1. Record. Afghanistan taught me. Counterfeit authority can get you killed. These amateurs were running the same intimidation playbook, just with different costumes. I squared my stance, military command presence settling over me. "Step away from my property immediately. You have zero legitimacy here." My U.S. Army shirt wasn't just clothing now. It was a line in the sand. Authentic service versus costume fraud. The clipboard guy's hand shook so hard the official documents rattled. "Sir, these are official HOA enforcement papers," he tried, but his voice cracked. Their credibility drained like air from a punctured tire. Troy tried one last desperate bluff. "Backup units are en route. You're obstructing official duties." "Call your backup," I said, steady and calm, still recording. "Let's see how your supervisor feels about mattress salesmen playing cop." The linebacker gave up on his fake radio chatter. The absurdity was complete. 3 grown men playing dress-up try to intimidate a combat veteran with knockoff badges and toy radios. From the driveway, Diane's voice cut through the tension. If you won't cooperate with our security team, I'm calling the real police to report an armed threat. She stood arms crossed, righteous indignation radiating like stage lights. Her performance was almost as theatrical as their uniforms. Perfect. I replied, eyes never leaving Troy's. Make that call. When real officers arrive, we'll see who the criminals are. Within minutes, my driveway turned into a twisted stage production. Neighbors emerged, phones out, holding identical safety-first signs, all in the same handwriting, same crooked spacing. Professional staging, amateur execution. Diane stood center stage, phoned her ear. 911. We have an armed veteran threatening our neighborhood, she declared, her voice trembling just enough to sound scared. I watched in amazement. She was filing a false report in front of witnesses. Ma'am, I haven't threatened anyone, I said loudly enough for crowd. Neighbors glanced between us, uncertain. He's brandishing weapons at families, Diane insisted, pointing at my garage. Troy and his crew tried to look official again, but Diane upped the ante. She held up her phone. Look at this reel. Him cleaning his weapons yesterday, threatening our peaceful block. I stepped closer to the screen. Clever angles, clumsy editing, designed to make me look like I was aiming outside. Anyone paying attention could see the seams. That's some creative editing, Diane, I said loudly. Hollywood would be proud. Mrs. Patterson from next door squinted at the video. Wait, is that yesterday? I was gardening. I never saw anything threatening. Neighbors murmured, comparing their own memories to Diane's evidence. Troy stepped forward, trying to regain control. Ma'am, we need to establish perimeter for everyone's protection, he said, directing neighbors with action movie hand signals. Neighborhood Tragedy Edition, I muttered, snapping photos of the obvious staging. Those signs, you make them last night, Diane? Her glare could have melted steel, but the cracks were showing. Even an 8-year-old spoke up. Diane, my mom says we moved here because it was safe. Are we not safe anymore? We're perfectly safe, I told him gently. Some adults are just playing pretend right now. Diane flushed red. Her emergency was crumbling under basic scrutiny. The nervous imposter's papers shook like leaves. Official paperwork from what authority? I asked, what department? What supervisor? Nothing. Just prop pages. Troy tried again. We're establishing a crime scene perimeter. Citizens need to maintain a safe distance. But his voice lacked conviction. Mrs. Henderson, who'd lived here for decades, spoke from the crowd. Young man, what crime exactly? Grant's been nothing but helpful since he moved in. Diane doubled down. He's creating an unsafe environment with military weapons. This neighborhood demands absolute protection from gun violence. I shook my head. Diane, legal gun ownership isn't creating danger. Filing false police reports is. The murmuring grew louder. Some neighbors began taking their own photos. The linebacker spoke into his dead radio again. Base, we need immediate backup. Static. Nothing. I switched my emergency scanner to public frequencies so everyone could hear the silence. Real cops answer their radios, folks. These guys are broadcasting to nobody. A man I barely knew stepped forward. Ma'am, I called the HOA this morning. They said they don't even have a security enforcement division. The crowd's murmuring turned to open doubt. Diane's fabricated authority was collapsing. That video editing's really something. I told the neighbors. Notice the mismatched timestamps. The lighting shifts. Professional trickery, amateur execution. People peered closer at their phones. The deception was coming apart. Live, in front of everyone. Sirens wailed closer, a sound I entreated like a victory march. Now we'll see who the real criminal is, she smirked, confidence etched into her face. Her whole false narrative rested on one belief, that official police would back her play. Perfect timing. I said evenly, still filming. Finally, some real authority, instead of furniture salesmen, in Halloween costumes. Troy's jaw tightened at the jab. The closer those sirens came, the more the fake uniforms wilted under real scrutiny. A police cruiser swung into my driveway with the unmistakable weight of authenticity. The door opened. Officer Morrison stepped out, calm, assessing, and immediately familiar. His posture, the way he scanned the scene, that was military training. The imposters moved first. "Officer, we've secured the scene," Troy declared, trying to sound like command. "The suspect's been uncooperative with our investigation." The audacity almost made me laugh. They were trying to pass off a con to a real cop. Morrison's eyes swept over them once, then locked onto their patches and thin uniforms. His instincts kicked in. Something didn't fit. He raised a hand, halting Troy's approach. "Identification," he ordered flatly. His gaze flicked to my shirt, the U.S. Army insignia. For a tense second his hand hovered near his holster, until recognition softened his eyes. "Sergeant Major?" he asked quietly. "That's right," I answered, relief catching in my throat. "And these men aren't who they're pretending to be." I gestured toward Troy's squad. Their sham credentials were seconds from collapse. Troy tried to steady his voice. "Officer Morrison, we're conducting official HOA security enforcement," he said, flashing a fake badge like it was real gold. "Neighborhood protection requires firearms investigation." Morrison's expression hardened. "Ma'am," he called over to Diane, "fabricated video presented as evidence is a serious offense. This isn't family protection. This is manufacturing fear." He turned to the crowd, voice carrying like a command briefing. "Who here actually witnessed threatening behavior yesterday?" Silence. Not a single hand rose. Diane's story cracked under its own weight. I added my own nail to the coffin. "That tall one? He's from a mattress commercial, Bennett's Bargain Beds." Troy's face blanched. Even the linebacker imposter tried to bluff. "Officer, we have clearance through a county contract." But when Morrison asked for paperwork, supervisor names, or a call to their department, they had nothing, just sweaty palms and stammered excuses. I stepped closer, still recording. Wrong emblem design, civilian-grade gear, fake radio chatter. "These aren't cops, they're actors." Morrison keyed his shoulder mic, requesting immediate escalation. Dispatch answered back in sharp, authentic codes. "This is how real command works," he announced to the crowd. "Authentication, chain of command, accountability, not stage chatter." Diane clutched her phone like a lifeline. "Officer, he's threatening our residents." Our team documented everything. She held up the same edited clip, confident it would vindicate her. Morrison barely glanced at it. "Ma'am, that's clearly routine firearm maintenance. Nothing remotely threatening." His tone sliced through Diane's claim like a blade. "He's creating an unsafe environment." Diane doubled down, her rhetoric revealing her extremism. "This neighborhood demands complete protection from all gun violence." Morrison ignored her and turned back to the imposters. "Show me department contacts, supervisors, legal authorization. Now." Silence. No names, no numbers. Just props. Funny how they can't answer simple questions. I said for the camera. Real law enforcement encourages supervisor calls. Troy tried one last time. "We have a private security contract." "Private security cannot impersonate law enforcement," Morrison interrupted, projecting for the whole crowd. "These uniforms, badges, and radios are designed to deceive. That's a federal crime." The neighbors' faces shifted as understanding spread. The whole emergency was unraveling in real time. Morrison's comms crackled again. "Dispatch! Send a detective in federal contact for possible civil rights violations." The imposters exchanged looks of panic. The play acting was over. "That's Detective Walsh's specialty," Morrison murmured to me. "Civil rights violations. Counterfeit law enforcement." Troy was dripping sweat now, his mattress salesman identity fully exposed. His crew began edging backward, realizing they'd crossed into felony territory. I squared my shoulders. "Officer Morrison, thank you for recognizing the difference between real service and phony insignias." He nodded, eyes grave. "Sergeant Major, your assessment is spot on. These men committed serious crimes today." Then Morrison pivoted to Diane. "Ma'am, did you hire these men knowing they'd impersonate police?" Before she could answer, a mobile command unit rolled up, the kind that meant federal business. Detective Walsh stepped out with digital forensics gear and financial tracing tools. The neighborhood dispute had just become a criminal investigation. "Mr. Hayes," she said briskly, "we need the full story, today and the weeks leading up to this." Her team set up like a deployment. Laptops, evidence tables, interagency comms. This wasn't spontaneous fear. It was a case. Hours of review uncovered the plot's real depth. Diane's laptop held months of late-night searches. How to remove old soldiers from neighborhoods, firearm-free residential communities, police-style security companies. This wasn't safety, Walsh told me. This was ideological extremism and targeting. Then came the money trail. Bank records showed Troy had paid Diane $3,000 up front, with more scheduled for successful firearm elimination. Texts revealed she specifically requested police-style enforcement to intimidate me. This wasn't neighborly concern. It was a paid scheme to violate rights. Walsh spread out more files. Diane contacted Troy's company the day after you signed your house contract. She researched your Afghanistan deployment, MP training, and firearms collection to exploit them. I felt the betrayal hit like a body blow. I thought this was just neighborhood politics. I said quietly. Turns out she wanted to destroy my rights before I even unpacked my safe. Walsh nodded grimly. Federal databases showed Troy's syndicate had used the same tactic on 47 veterans across 6 states, profiting more than $2 million. They target veterans with gun collections and use fake crises to scare communities into security contracts, she said. Residents began giving statements about Diane's months-long manipulation campaign. Federal charges, conspiracy to deprive civil rights under color of law, loomed large. 10 years in prison minimum. Diane's official position made it worse, not better. I stared at the files. In Afghanistan, we had a saying for people who betray those they're sworn to protect. I said, traitors. Diane had sworn to serve his community, then sold out veterans for monthly payments. For the first time since it began, justice felt inevitable. Federal coordination spread like wildfire. Mr. Hayes, Detective Walsh told me, we're uncovering similar schemes in 5 counties and multiple states. Your case is opening the door to dismantling a national operation. What started with 3 imposters in my garage was unraveling into a syndicate targeting veterans across the country, stripping liberties for profit and ideology. At the emergency community meeting, the room was packed. Troy, facing mounting federal charges, tried one last desperate play. If he couldn't preserve his fake authority, he'd torch my reputation. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, suddenly fluent without the Cop Act, I have shocking proof. He held up his phone, playing a clip of me handling firearms in my garage, edited to look threatening. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Patterson frowned. Even Tommy's mother pulled her son closer. The smear was working. These clips prove veterans pose a danger, Troy pressed, voice swelling with momentum. Combat trauma makes them unpredictable. My chest tightened, not from fear, but from the violation. My service, years of restraint under fire, twisted into a weapon against me. That's interesting paperwork. I said, rising. My tone was the same one I'd use with insurgents overseas. Mind if I verify those files? Because the military has verification hotlines. His confidence flickered. He tried to pile on. Neighbors have witnessed late-night threats. He's dangerous. Before his smear could spread further, a clear voice cut through. Stop right there. Dr. Rebecca Stone, military counselor, entered with forensic equipment. Mr. Bennett, that video is digitally altered, and these documents... She projected authentication data. Forgeries. Grant Hayes' actual record shows commendations for protecting civilians, for restraint, for preventing casualties. The room erupted. Troy went pale. You want to talk PTSD? I said, voice unsteady but firm. Yes, combat changes you. But it also teaches discipline, responsibility, restraint. Veterans aren't bombs waiting to go off. We're trained to protect. The vulnerability felt like tearing open my chest, but it mattered. Mrs. Henderson, gray-haired and steady, rose. My son died in Afghanistan protecting people like you, she said to Troy. How dare you use his sacrifice to smear another veteran? The weight of her words shifted the room. Veterans spoke up. Stories poured out. The smear collapsed under truth. Dr. Stone dismantled Troy's false records page by page. These terms haven't been used in military medicine for 15 years. Fraudulent. Offensive. Troy tried to slip out, but Officer Morrison blocked the exit. Mr. Bennett, you're not leaving until we discuss these fake federal forms. His calm tone carried the weight of law. The smear had become another criminal charge. Afterward, neighbors approached me with apologies, thanks, and support. What Troy meant to use as a weapon had backfired, binding the community tighter. Then black SUVs rolled in. An FBI mobile command unit unfolded in the parking lot. Antennas, maps, laptops. This wasn't neighborhood drama anymore. It was a federal battlefield. Special Agent Rodriguez introduced himself. Mr. Hayes, your case exposed a syndicate operating in 6 states. He laid out files, timelines, victim names. 47 veterans. Same script, same badges. HOA officials paid off. The cruelty was systematic, industrial. Rodriguez revealed Troy's record. Wanted in 3 states, fraudulent contracts, harassment charges, impersonation of federal agents. A predator specializing in veterans. On a live call, a veteran from Arizona pointed at the screen. That's him. Same bogus badge. Same radio chatter. He tried this on me 2 years ago. The room froze. Troy's mask cracked. Mrs. Carter, Rodriguez told Diane, hiring fugitives to impersonate police makes you complicit. Her denial rang hollow. Media swarmed. Stories emerged nationwide of HOA overreach and veterans harassed under false pretenses. My case had become the tip of the spear. If there was an Oscar for fake cops, Troy would win. I muttered, photographing the seized badges. But this isn't theater. This is about veterans' rights being sold off. Arrests rippled across states. The syndicate was collapsing. Congress scheduled hearings. Legal precedent was forming. Federal legislation was being drafted. My neighborhood clash was turning into a textbook case on civil rights and veteran protection. Then Rodriguez leaned in. Mr. Hayes, Diane's attorney just contacted us. She's willing to cooperate for a reduced sentence. 3 months after the showdown in my garage, I sat across from prosecutors and defense attorneys in a federal courthouse. What had begun as a petty HOA dispute was now a national reckoning. Agent Rodriguez leaned toward me across the polished oak table. The prosecutor wants your input. Hayes, Diane Carter's attorney, has offered full cooperation against Troy's entire syndicate in exchange for a reduced sentence. Since you're the primary victim, it's your call. The responsibility pressed on me heavier than any weapon I'd carried overseas. I had faced firefights in Afghanistan, but deciding the fate of someone who had dismantled freedoms on my own soil fell harder. When Judge Harrison's gavel struck, the chamber rang like a rifle shot. Troy received 25 years in federal prison, organized conspiracy, deprivation of civil rights, fugitive charges stacked high. His company assets were seized to repay victims. He was barred for life from ever touching the security industry again. Prosecutor Sarah Walker slid a folder across to me. Charts, ledgers, evidence tables. His operation pulled in over $2 million, mostly by targeting veterans. Your testimony was a linchpin. Without it, the whole thing might have held together. The weight of it all made my chest tighten. Diane Carter's cooperation had already helped agents arrest 5 HOA officials in 3 states and shut down 2 identical schemes. Her face, though, carried the shadow of betrayal. She whispered once, almost to herself, I thought I was protecting families. The words hit harder than any statute. The plea agreement was precise. 8 to 10 years in prison, full restitution of my legal costs, permanent ban from any HOA role, and mandatory civic education work after her release. It wasn't freedom, but it wasn't a life sentence either. When I spoke during the victim impact session, my voice was steady. Mrs. Carter, you tried to strip away my rights before I'd even unpacked my bags. But your cooperation is saving other veterans from the same ordeal. That matters, too. The room was silent. Community members testified about the trust she'd broken. Mrs. Henderson, an 86-year-old Gold Star mother, said quietly, Diane's actions dishonored every soldier's sacrifice. Outside the courtroom, change was already rolling forward. Congress advanced the Veteran Protection Act, monitoring HOA compliance, rapid response for harassment, annual civic education for board members. Real reform from a neighborhood war. When Diane spoke at her formal apology hearing, her voice cracked. I let fear and greed twist me into someone I don't recognize. I'll spend the rest of my life making amends. Her sincerity felt real. But sincerity doesn't erase consequences. Troy seized assets. Every dollar of the $2 million his company had stolen were redistributed to veterans. The case set a national precedent. Private authority could no longer stage fake emergencies to trample individual liberties. Mr. Hayes, Judge Harrison told me at the close of proceedings, your insistence on accountability with fairness has created protections that will last beyond your lifetime. He was right. Federal oversight systems were built directly from our case. Automatic investigations for veteran harassment, cross-state databases for counterfeit authority, civil rights monitors in every private community. The letters started arriving soon after. Veterans from across the country wrote, thanking me for standing my ground. Some said the precedent had already shielded them from abuse. And then one afternoon, Rodriguez handed me an envelope stamped with the seal of the Supreme Court. They wanted my input for upcoming cases on private authority limits. The fight was moving to a higher battlefield. 18 months later, the Hayes Liberty Learning Center welcomed its 200th visitor. Veterans, HOA officials, law students, even federal agents came to learn about defending freedoms at the neighborhood level. In the garage where it all began, I mounted the counterfeit badges. Side by side with real ones, they were a lesson in how close lies can mimic truth. That display had more weight than any lecture. Diane wrote me letters from prison. She was in her 6th year, still working in civic programs. One line stuck with me. I thought fear made communities safe. Now I know freedoms are the only safeguard. Troy stayed locked away with 19 years left. Counterfeit authority harassment plummeted nationwide. The deterrent worked. Congresswoman Martinez visited the center and said, the Veterans Protection Act has prevented more than 300 incidents already. Former neighbors who once supported Diane now volunteered. Children who had cried during the stage emergency now learned about civic duty and rights. Tommy, the boy who had been terrified that night, was applied to law school to become a civil rights attorney. The rifle that had started it all, my grandfather's hunting heirloom, rested in a case, light from the windows casting its shadow across a bronze plaque. Hayes Liberty Learning Center, dedicated to defending every American's right to live free. When visitors asked what I'd learned, I told them simply, freedom isn't defended once. It's defended every single day. So if you're still here listening, tell me what you felt. Did the fight matter? Did the resolution feel earned? And if it did, drop a thumbs up. Share this story with someone who believes rights are worth defending. Even on the smallest street in America. Stay sharp. Stay free. I'll see you out there. Thanks for watching Tale Times. Share this video with someone who loves a good plot twist.